Good morning, home church. Well, it's morning for us when we're recording this. Today we have a special guest with us. We're doing our first official episode with a guest.
Hey, Zach.
We've got JB, Mr. Justin Barton,
Hello, hello. How you doing?
in studio in the back booth with us, ladies and gentlemen. You have Zach Nash.
What's up, guys? Good to be here again, and just want to say thanks for helping us once again, JB, hook everything up and
Yeah,
get
for
everything
sure.
set. And welcome to your first podcast with us.
Thanks. I snuck in on the last one just a little bit, but that's okay.
So, I think how this is going to go is that, excuse me, we're going to ask you a couple questions, JB, and then if you feel like it, you can share a little bit of your testimony if you want, and just let some of the people that are watching online get to know you a little bit better because Pastor Clayton does call on us and give us shout outs every once in a while, and you know,
For
not
sure.
everybody gets to be here in person every Sunday. So
Yep, understood. Glad to be here. Glad to be part of this. So,
I think we got a little technical difficulty with JB's mic. Give me just a second.
you're not going to be able to hear.
testing. Yeah, that's the problem. You can't hear it in there. Yeah, you can hear it on the broadcast, but not on the.
We're good.
Because you're hooked into the mini PC versus the soundboard, which we'll gradually get there, right? So that's what we do.
Baby steps.
Yeah, that's right. Baby
Yep.
steps. Every week, improve.
That's the motto back here in the booth. So, JB, what was it that interested you in the media and that whole?
Just give me some time in the booth, actually. So, like years ago, whenever I first started over at Cornerstone Church, I just needed something to do. Like, I would go to church, but then I didn't feel like, like I was involved and I wanted to be involved at the church itself. So, had a chance, Liz Blomenkamp gave me a chance to be in the media booth and learn the things of the nature at that time. It was ProPresenter 6 and just some antiquated stuff nowadays compared, because it's been about 10 or 12, maybe, I don't even know. I have to count. It's been a long time.
And for those of you, I don't know if we mentioned it thoroughly enough, but JB is head over the media department back here, the live stream and all the sound and that fun stuff. So it's not just one little bitty area that he's over. He's connections, and him and Larry battle little bugs every Sunday to get this thing rolling. It seems like, um, and so that JB deals with the brunt of the unfun getting stuff loaded and unloaded and finding pictures for slides and doing this and doing that. So that's who JB is. For those of you that don't know, I know a lot of people know who JB is, but just in case, that is who JB is. So
Thank you for that introduction. Appreciate that.
what was it? I mean, you said that, obviously it was something that kept you busy in church because you said you know, you kind of have to take that next step eventually. Was there something? Was it just the whole technology aspect of it? Because I mean, that's pretty much what you do for a living. Is that what was kind
Yeah.
of like a no-brainer?
I mean, at that time, no, because I think the technology was just starting to come into play at that moment. So it wasn't really too much of a factor, as much as I wanted to just get involved in the church more than just sitting in a pew, honestly. So wanted to learn or start becoming friends with the people who were there. Just branching out and like we do here, just making community of friends.
Now I know for me, I mean Zach may be different, but you uh, were really the first that I can think of as far as teaching and training and instructing. Is that, do you remember, was JB?
Back at Venture. excuse me, I got something stuck in my throat today. Back at Venture, yeah, JB was, I think, one of the first. Him and Will Maxwell were the very first two people to get me involved serving. Will was the youth pastor back at Venture Church. So, and then
Who's now the pastor out at Republic North Point. Very nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
very nice.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
sir.
he's doing great things out there.
Yes, he is.
So it's fun watching him and his
Yeah.
youth group and all that fun stuff on Facebook.
Yep.
But yeah, then Will got me hooked up with JB and started serving on the media team, which then got us introduced to Brett and all that fun stuff. So
Yep.
just building relationships, from the media team is really, really cool. And
Might
fun.
be just a middle-aged man type thing. I don't know, but I know we need women back here. We need women for those days that the men go out on their camp outs
Yeah.
and base camp, and for the weekends. That
Yeah, Corinne is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
lone.
Yeah, the Lone Ranger there.
The Lone
Shout out
Ranger
to
out here.
Corinne.
those ladies. Thanks, Corinne, for stepping in.
I don't think that there's really a whole lot that she doesn't. I mean, she's on stage, she's in the back with the kids, she's back here, so
Episode coming soon.
Yeah,
yes.
she
Yes.
is very, very eager to come
That's
on.
awesome. That's
So-
awesome.
So who was your JB? Who was your JBR to
So,
you?
who was your mentor? I believe is what he's asking.
Erica Pasquale, probably at the time she took over for Liz. Liz moved out of town, I believe. I may get my histories wrong. Liz, correct me on Sunday. I can confess my sins then. So, no, but Erica stepped in and she had to revamp Cornerstone in a way that was, likening to Rick, but just getting a little more up to par because it was getting kind of ancient at the time. So, drab curtains. We wanted to increase, obviously the people that were coming, but we wanted to cater to more of a younger audience too. So, we got ProPresenter. We had just all the slides and media and how we did our thing every Sunday was. We tried to do it like clockwork. Obviously, there was always bugs. We tried to use equipment that, may not have been the greatest at the time, but we got through. We did it. But she taught me a lot in those softwares. But at the time, I was going through a technological change in my life as well. So we can talk about that a little bit later. But it all kind of worked out together. So. Yeah, at that time, then Shannon stepped in. Him and me kind of battled heads a little bit on vision, but for Venture Church, which Cornerstone became from Rick's passion and the turning over the keys at the time by Pastor Jess at the time, who has since passed away. Rest in peace, Pastor Jess. We love you. We miss you. But then we became Venture, and we had some of the coolest stuff, some of the more updated pieces of equipment, but we could get creative, and it was kind of cool. So that's where I think it all launched into where we're at today. So that's where a lot of my education came from.
Now, what is it whenever you get somebody new back here? And there's obviously, I mean, you can't just solely do it yourself. We have to help back here as well. What is one thing, as somebody who sees and it's mostly younger generation back here because technology and stuff. What is one thing, if there is somebody young who's in youth or you're sort of in the younger generation and you are looking to volunteer into something kind of tech and the stuff like that is your thing, what are some highlights to something of I know a lot of the times whenever we do prayer and stuff like that, Dana talks about how people are here whenever, late hours of the night and stuff, and that's definitely part of the media team, first in, last out. We highlight sometimes the bad of a media team, but what would you say is the benefit? What experiences can somebody who's looking to join a team and they say, hey, maybe the media, what would you in a couple of, I don't know, paragraphs or however you want to word that, how would you explain it back here? The joys of it, what you get out of it, the joy.
So I would preface that to say, don't let it intimidate you to come back here for sure, but the joy that it gives you to impact, the congregation in such a way where they're ready to, give their lives to the Lord, or, miracles happen while the worship team's singing and bringing their all and their A game, and we're back here mixing it up, and we're throwing it online for people, and just the benefit of knowing that somebody's crossing that path that we all want to help get over that hump, that bring it, I found Jesus today, Sunday type of thing. So we love that. That's how we impact this church. That's how we impact this world right now. It's but it is from a booth, and it is inside, and that's why we ask you to come on Sundays, man. It's enjoyable here in this atmosphere. The broadcast isn't 100% perfect. It doesn't give you the joys of being in church with your comrades and doing church together. Comrades is probably a bad word, but
I think for me, being back here and serving on Sundays, it's a cool way to serve without like being high pressure and being nervous in front of everybody.
Don't lie to them.
There can be, there can be.
Yeah, it's timing
when they're improvising.
That's
yeah,
right,
that can be a little high pressure.
We got a routine, but
it eventually falls into place, and
that's right.
once you do it enough,
it's when those bugs hit, we don't know what to do.
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh.
But it's a very fun way to serve without having to be up in front of
for sure
50 to 100 people, depending on what Sunday it is.
Yeah, I give it to the worship team. They're in front of them.
Right.
Where whenever there's a mistake made, that's when they turn and look at us.
Right.
And that's another thing too. Whenever you talk about serving, I think a lot of times people think that you do have to be on, the worship team, or you do have to be in front for your service, for the Lord to see your service. And that's the thing. You can take baby steps into something, and if that means that you're not a huge people person, we got a wall that surrounds you. And that's what I started. I started out with Larry and JB, and I got comfortable with Larry and JB, and I just started to realize that, hey, Larry and JB aren't just like this; everybody else is. So if you're thinking it's going to be overwhelming, it can be at times, but that's the glory of it. You're here with each other and
breaking through and making it to the end.
Right.
Yeah,
and you're not going in and at it alone.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you may not always get every Sunday the recognition and stuff like that, but that's sometimes the best part about it, is you realize how important the little things are, and you take care of the little things, and those little things can blossom into bigger things. So,
amen. Tell us about the time that you stepped in to the booth for the first time.
Oh yeah, I think touched on it a little bit last time, but yeah, I knew that God had called me to do something bigger than just sit in the front seat. So I had showed up here one Wednesday night for what was supposed to be youth, and it's like I said before, I don't have social media or anything like that. So whenever they would do their updates, they did them through Instagram and Facebook. Well, I didn't have that, so I just showed up here one Wednesday night, back whenever practices for service for the worship team were on Wednesday night. I just showed up I think they were going putt-putt that night or something, and I showed up here thinking they would be here, and they weren't. And JB was like, if you want to sit back here and just learn, then more power to you. It's not that big of a deal. And I was like, you know what, I'm up here. There's a reason I'm here anyways. Normally I wouldn't have gotten out of the house and drove all the way over here. So, but that's how it started, was just that. And one thing led to another, and I wanted to do something with the youth ministry, but those baby steps, like we were talking about, those baby steps, you got to take those, and your fight that you want to fight, you think you're called to fight this huge, massive fight, and it's not until you let God take it and you begin to trust Him, and you don't begin to trust Him until you take baby steps. It's baby steps. So To everybody out there that's worried about you've missed your calling, you've done this, and you're too bad of a person. It starts with baby steps, and it's showing up here on a Wednesday night whenever, and not leaving, saying, you know what, God, you've got me here for a reason.
Tuesday now.
Yeah, Tuesday now. So anybody,
It was Wednesday then.
Zach, what I want to hear, I haven't got to hear your testimony about the whole media.
Oh, back at Venture when I very first started going back to church, thanks to my beautiful wife now, Caitlin, brought me to Venture at the time, and the very first person outside of Caitlin and her family that talked to me was Will Maxwell. Came running up and gave me a hug and a high five, which I wasn't used to. So he's like, "Hey, how's it going? Would like to get you involved in the young adults and stuff like that." And then just started introducing me to people. And I think the third person he introduced me to was JB, and of course he was standing back in the tech booth and all that fun stuff. And I've always had an interest
Where
in.
you'll find me.
I've always had an interest in media and stuff like that. I actually did video production in high school, so all this behind the scenes stuff is really, really cool to me. And I actually went to the school for a little bit for music production and stuff like that, so
Nice.
I have a little bit of background in it and all that fun stuff. So this is my
You're
way.
honing in on your skills.
Right. It's
And we didn't even know you had them.
it's my way of somewhat using what I learned in school to serve the Lord, since I found out very quickly once I moved to Nashville that if you don't know anybody, it's not going to happen. So back to how it all started, ended up going to Wednesday nights and slowly becoming a assistant youth pastor, I guess is what you can call it. Will had a backup team of like 4 or 5 of us, if not more than that, on Wednesday nights. And then slowly started working with JB on the media team on Sundays. And then eventually, once I got good enough and everybody trusted me enough, they made me the lighting director, to where every Sunday I was the one that was setting the themes for the songs and Rick's messages and stuff like that. So it was really, really cool, and hopefully eventually we can get the lighting back to where it was. But
Yeah, I think we need a bigger place, need a little
yeah,
darker area.
that much light now
The
would
stage is
be a little overwhelming for.
humongous right now, compared to the facilities. So, I mean, it's a nice stage. They do a great job with what they do every Sunday for sure on it. But yeah, Adventure, we had
It was
twice,
it was
maybe
massive.
3 times as big a stage.
Yeah.
We actually had 3 projectors blended in together that made this 40-foot by 10-foot high monitor, single widescreen. It was crazy. It was nuts. But every Sunday we'd get creative and we'd get our stuff in, and Rick would help. And
Yeah.
he was a very creative pastor. He's an amazing person, and glad he is at Life Church or Life Living.
Is it Life Living Hope or something?
Yeah.
Like that? Yeah.
Living Hope. That's
Yeah.
it. Golly.
Sorry,
Shout
Pastor
out Rick.
Yeah.
Shout out Rick.
But yeah, the fact that you and Pastor Rick were very, very trusting and willing to hand that over to somebody that's only been doing it for a couple of weeks was
It's amazing.
very, very inspiring and building confidence. So for me, that's and the camaraderie of all of us back here, just doing life together and not afraid to deal with those technical difficulties. Sorry, I can't talk today. But learning to overcome stuff and stuff like that. And,
Yep.
all the behind the scenes stuff is
Bridges
just as
into life.
important as, if not a little bit more than.
Yep. Hopefully it helps teach us lessons and
Right.
give us
So-
experience to overcome those battles
It's
whenever we see them, for sure.
It's definitely been a fun ride over the past
Yep.
4 years now.
And we built this whole thing together
Right.
here. So
So
that's, I mean, after that, we had so much stuff embedded in Venture Cornerstone Church that making a new church was something that was like, oh my gosh, we got to start from scratch. We got to build all this stuff. We got to add these things. It's not easy. And
which
here
yeah,
we are 2 years later, and man, we're rocking and rolling.
right. It was very overwhelming very quickly.
Yep,
So
it is. But we took on the task. We made it, and we got this far, and I think we're doing fairly well.
right. Yeah, I would agree.
Yep.
So talking about venture and Cornerstone, I know it's a kind of a tough subject, so feel free to just pass over the question if you want. But what was it like for you when we broke apart?
It hurt bad because I don't feel that the people who were involved in that situation or the decision that was made post haste and under people that came to the table that didn't need to come to the table thing. It was just a weird situation and it just didn't end well. The thing that came out of it was, there's another church that birthed out of it. That's us. But then they also have a new church. They sold it and got whatever they wanted. But there's a new church there. So there's now, instead of breaking up one church, you have two churches in its place. And, unfortunately, it was, it was a nasty breakup. But, yeah. So what happened was Pastor Rick got a calling to Indiana to put in his resume. Not that he needed to or anything, but it was just something that he was called to do. So he did, and through some circumstances, he was assigned as the lead pastor there. And he let everybody know very professionally. We had 5 or 6 people that were lined up that could do any sermon on any week for any amount of Sundays for the next year or 2 years, whatever we needed at that time. So we had it going, we had it clicking. He had no problem handing that over because obviously he knew. But the board, who was not even a part of the church, didn't go to church, went to church, but didn't go to that church, had made a decision to go ahead and sell the whole property and give it to some pastor in Hawaii, Dr. Morocco, which is a great person. And that was their decision, but before that, it was to kick Rick out. This is your last Sunday. You don't get it next Sunday. You don't get the red carpet ride out. It was just rude. It was just horrible. And the situation just, it got to me, and I turned in my keys that Sunday. As soon as I hit stop on the live, I left, and I put my keys in the mailbox and walked out. I've never had that feeling before for a church. It was, there were prerequisites to that. There were obviously times whenever I knew something was wrong, and we questioned it as just people, leaders of the church. At the time, we could question anything, so we found out there was a couple things that were happening, and we told them that day, if this church turns into a business-related type situation, and it's business over people, then we're out of here. And that was really the reason we left. So, but a lot of people left. A lot of people broke up. Some people stayed, and they saw it through, but Dr. Morocco did buy the property, and he's turned it around, and it's doing great. It's Kings Springfield, so shout out to them.
Yeah, the one Sunday we went after he took over, it was a great sermon.
Yep.
It just I know she's gonna excuse me. Caitlin may feel differently than I did, but it just wasn't the same. It didn't feel like home anymore.
Right.
So, I know for us, things went downhill very, very quickly there for the 2-3 weeks before we fully found a place and started home church.
Yep.
So
it was definitely unfortunate. Don't want anybody to ever go through that. We can guarantee that never will happen at home church. So
right.
Whoever's on the board will be attending members for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We can guarantee that. So at least the knowledge and the decisions will become, a part of the church because they are a part of the church. So we don't
Right.
want something to, miscommunication. That's huge. That's a horrible thing that happens in life every day. So
Right.
got to communicate. Got to be part of it. So
Got to be transparent.
yep,
So-
definitely.
Not that we're trying to diss anybody or wish that
Yeah,
old
no.
board well and all them, but
No, yeah.
it just was very unfortunate how everything
Yep.
came to play. And, luckily, I mean, all of us were strong enough to deal with it when it happened, and we're able to find each other and lean on each other and all that fun stuff. And here we are 2 years later, stronger than ever. So
Kicking it in the booth.
We're going to take a quick pause because we're getting ready to transfer into Justin's his road through salvation. I would like to give a shout out to Dalton. Dalton has one of his groups is the Tenacious Discipleship. A lot of young men a part of that. A lot of the future of home church is going to these meetings, getting strengthened, getting poured into. You can see it every weekend. You can see it shine through Leonard's face, smiling on the keyboard. It just seems like as our age, it seems to be very easy to get beat down by life, and society tries to tell you what a man is, and you don't read the Bible. And one thing that Dalton makes sure to do is make sure that he treats you like Jesus treated you. I really enjoy being around Dalton. He's very calming. He's a lot like everybody here. They just make you feel comfortable. I want to give a shout out to Dalton in that because I know it's not easy with 14 and 15-year-olds trying to keep them occupied. I couldn't imagine grown men who have, life coming at you. So big shout out to Dalton there, and appreciate what you're doing for our generation here at Home Church. And not only that, but as Pastor Clayton said maybe it was last weekend, when he had Dalton stand up, he's opened it up to not just, 25 to 35 range. It's everybody now. So that is great news. I believe it's every Thursday night. I'm not sure the exact time on that.
I believe he started at 6 at his house, if I remember correctly.
I know lately, this cooler weather, every once in a while he'll do a bonfire outside with something like that. If not, they inside, and it seems like they have good home cooked meals. Chili, I think, was one of them. So if you're somebody who is struggling to find somebody around your age, definitely give it a shot. I have not, unfortunately, been one of them yet. I'll be honest with you, but I hear good things. Have you?
I have not. Unfortunately, my work schedule doesn't line up with
That's
it.
right. Yeah,
but,
that's right. But
everybody I've talked to that's gone has nothing but good things to say. I mean, it's a good group of guys. There's Brett, Jacob, Chris. Kyle's going. Dalton. I think he's got a group of 10 to 15 guys that go on a regular basis.
Nice.
So it's definitely a cool group of guys going and just learning how to love on Christ better and getting out of their comfort zones a little bit and learning what it means to be better disciples. So huge shout out to Dalton and his majestic mustache that he's rocking every Sunday.
yes, most definitely. Him and that beautiful. I prefer the black cowboy hat myself, but that's just me. But I think a lot he does brings in some guys from the Alpha Chi ministry there at MSU. Him and Lacey are pretty heavy into that. So that's another
huge shout out
thing.
to them. So.
Most definitely, Alpha Chi. He does a better job explaining it than I, but the basis around Alpha Chi is the basis of what Tenacious Discipleship is, just pouring in each other and helping each other out. So we're going to cut back to the saga of JB, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Dalton on that. So JB, back at it again. Studio audience welcomes you.
That's me clapping, right?
So, Justin, when was your first experience with Christ? Can you recall when you're...
So I was raised Catholic, but raised Catholic to me is kind of weird. So I'm gonna have to bring you back all the way to my childhood. So at 8, I was adopted. I was given up for adoption because of a abusive man in my mom's life, and I was given up with my brother. I have a twin brother, and we were both given up at 8. And the Bartons, Robert and Jane, and Valley Center took us in. So at that time they were Catholic, so we got to learn how to be Catholic. So we'd go to catechism and Sunday school and a couple different churches, but we followed one priest specifically, Father Scoletti over there in Wichita, who's since passed. He was a great guy, great priest, but to me it's not the same as, it's more like a routine in that aspect. I don't want to give it up for the Catholics because they do it every week, and they're consistent with that for sure. But I just feel like it's more intimate here in Christian type lifestyle. So, but yeah, I grew up as a Catholic, so learned about all of that. I got all of my, what do you call them? I guess my Bible read through, and you could do communion and confession and all those things that you learn about from the Bible itself. So, and then I was a troubled youth because of obviously the late adoption, and just not feeling like I was with the right family, and just a lot of things happened, and it was in Wichita, and it wasn't the greatest city in the world to be growing up in as a youth, and having access to tons of friends that were on a warpath as well. So that led to some bad decisions, and I ended up in prison before I was 18. It's just amazing. So for stealing a car stereo, but I broke my probation, and the judge said, he said that I told you not to come back here, and it was like my 11th and a half month before my 12 months probation was over.
Wow.
But I stole another car stereo, so I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, away I go. I had a birthday in prison on 18. So that's horrible. Horrible life. Don't lead that life. Please don't lead that life. Anyways, but it keeps going from there, and I go to college, but then I was dealing drugs more than anything at that time. So I got caught doing that, and then it just keeps going downhill. Jace was born. Jessica and I rekindled back in Wichita in 1999, 2000. Jace was born in 1999, so obviously it was 1999. Anyways, we rekindled, and we got back together, and we started growing up, and we moved to Springfield in 2003. At that time, I was doing good, and obviously I didn't have any friends here, so it was like I go to church. We met Tara down the street, and they introduced us to Kathleen, and Kathleen Rice introduced us to Cornerstone Church and Pastor Jess and all the fun things that were happening over there, and they had Master's Commission, and so they were really into the church at the time. But from there, ran into an old friend in Springfield and started dealing drugs again. So just for monetary purposes, which was again horrible, but it's part of my life, and ended up a couple years later doing the wrong drugs, which was meth, and it got me hooked really quick. And it is the devil's drug of choice for sure. I don't want to ever see anybody on it. That's the most horrible drug ever. It'll turn you in 2 minutes to something you're not, and ruin your whole life and everything in it. And I'm so proud that Jessica stuck with me through it. But I left town. I wasn't even here because I couldn't do that in front of my kids. So, which was weird because at the time, how do you have any sense to think like that? So, anyways, I moved back to Wichita and ran around the streets and played stupid, and that was in 2008. That was 2007, 2008, and got busted robbing cars again. Well, that was just because I wanted to keep my drug habit up, and blah, blah, blah. So got busted, had to do a little bit of time, but at this point, I'm, a triple felony, so I'm looking at some time, man. Looking at a lot of time. I'm like, oh, great. Well, I mean, at the time, I didn't care, but when I did it, so obviously it wasn't that big of a deal to me, but I needed to change really quick, and I knew that I had a problem. So, and I didn't want to be there anymore. So I gave it all up, and I gave it literally up and gave it. And I didn't want it anymore. So I didn't know who to give it to. So I gave it to Jesus. I came back to church. I came back to Cornerstone and started going to church regularly. And that's really about the time when Liz pulled me into the media booth, because I needed more than just sitting in the pew at the time. So it was just growing on me immensely, and I needed more and more of this and that. But that's when I first really got involved with Jesus to an extent and learned how it feels being in church besides being in the pew as being in the media booth. So that was an enormous change for me. At that time, I got out. The judge said, I'm going to give you 60 days instead of 10 years. Amazing. I couldn't believe it. It was a miracle all on its own, because it was the only thing that I really cared about at that moment was keeping my family together. I already ruined that, but they took me back in, and I didn't want anything but. So that's the only thing that I wanted at the time. So that was literally an ask from me for God. Just give me this, and I will show you what man I can be. And it changed everything for me at that time. They gave me the chance. At the time, I was working at a satellite company in town, so I was glad to have a job at least. So, which was awesome. 2 years down the road, I'm looking at. I'm making a lot of money. I mean, not a lot of money, but enough to get by, enough to keep my family happy. I pay taxes every year, but it was a job that I wasn't proud of, because, my installing days were coming up, and I was getting too old, I think, to crawl under houses anymore. So I was like, man, I really need kind of a change. I need a change in life. I'm like, where do I get this? Where do I ask for it? And I was like, literally a career change. One of the reasons my wife was starting to have issues with her gut, and her ulcerative colitis started kicking in, and we didn't know it at the time what it was, but that's what it was. And she started getting medication for it. Well, I couldn't pay for the insurance because I didn't have insurance. I'm like, I need to do something different with my life. I need corporate insurance or whatever, or how do I get that? How do I change what I'm doing right now to that? So, in all of that, I gave it up to the Lord, and I said, Lord, take this. I need this. You've done it before. Do it again for me. Literally, I need a career change, because it's, and here's the thing, is it's not about yourself much, even though it is, but it's more when I'm thinking about others and how I can impact them. That's when those miracles really happen. So I gave it up to him, and I lost my job. I was like, okay, that's not supposed to happen. This wasn't part of it. Well, it was because somebody called in and said that while I was in their house, I took their dimes. There's special dimes. And I was like, I don't need your dimes, man. I make $1,600 a week at the time. I'm like, it wasn't that much. It was like $800, but it was $1,600 a paycheck. So it was enough. I was like, I don't need your dimes. I don't need somebody's dimes. Well, guess what? They had to pull a background check, and guess what popped up? So there's nothing I can stand on. So I literally had to be let go, and I was like, oh my gosh, now I'm unemployed. What do I do? So I started looking for jobs, looking for stuff around here. I finally found something in Kansas City, and it was Google Fiber. I was like, okay, well, back to installation, but this is the newest thing, is this fiber thing. And
So I hate to cut you off right there.
Fine.
But let's go back to the part where you give it all up, you trust it all with God, and you get fired. I don't think a lot of people, uh, whenever they look at somebody who has walked with Christ for a certain amount of time, they just seem to think that, okay, the problems disappear. No longer do you have problems. You're so faithful in God that the devil is so scared of you that he doesn't touch you
That's
anymore.
true.
But the problem is the devil's after you more now because now you're a threat. So you go into this mindset of, oh, thank goodness I'm able to get rid of this addiction. And addiction is another thing in itself. It's an animal that if you think you can control it, you are going to lose every time. And I think all three of us in this booth can admit that I struggled with addiction, and there's
Oh
times
yeah.
where it tries to hop up again. So it's not like it's something that just goes away. So here you are, you're giving up your drug addiction. Boom, everything's going good. You're getting right, uh, as they would say with Jesus, getting right with God, and things begin to look up, and you catch that first real peak in your life. You're like, oh, all right, we're going places. And then they say, hey, somebody said you stole their dimes. In my
Bottom falls
head,
out.
in my head, I'm thinking, dimes? Are you serious? When you told that story, and I can't even imagine what went through your mind at the time. But explain to people, because I think everybody doesn't take into consideration we still go through pain. We still go through these trials and these temptations and these tests. What when were where was your mindset whenever they told you, "Hey, uh, you're fired"? What's the step-by-step process? Just because a lot of people don't want to talk about this, they just want to say, "Yeah, I toughed it through it." And for some people, we're taking those baby steps with Christ. That was a baby step for you. I mean, you just started getting involved in the church. So explain to us a little bit of the emotional roller coaster in more detail, if you will. I just think it's important that people realize.
Totally. I mean, I knew it wasn't his fault, but at the time, I couldn't put two together. It was really my first journey, my second miracle that I was asking for at the time. But it was like bottom fell out. Like, well, I guess he's not going to answer this one. So I kept going to church and I kept asking for the prayer. And it was like it's in my mind, but it's something that I needed. Um, the the company that I worked for didn't really fire me though, so they gave me a $10 an hour job to work in the warehouse. I just couldn't go out and install dish anymore, so I couldn't make the money that I was making. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not cool. So a couple months of that went, and then they eventually let me go just because they didn't have enough people to cover. They weren't making enough money because I wasn't out in the field. So it was like it was like a double whammy there. But it was just an eventual let go. So they knew, they understood, which was cool. But I mean, your mindset at the time, it's like what happened? How can I explain to these people that I'm not that person anymore? But you're a piece of paper now. You have it's written down. You're a felon. Guess what? You have a check mark by your name for the rest of your life. Well, you got to get over that. You got to definitely look past that yourself before you can get past the next bridge, for sure. So,
And that's another thing is God is going to move in your life and break away the parts that are fear or worry or whatever it is. So if you think it's about money, it's not about money. God doesn't need your money. God doesn't
doesn't need your dimes.
no, he doesn't need any of that. He just needs you to have faith in him. So whenever you get the news of, hey, you're going to make $10 an hour, all of a sudden you could have said to yourself, okay, how am I going to make more money? I'm going to have to get a third job, and we're going to have to do this, and I'm going to have to do this, and this, and this, and this, and this. You work the $10 an hour job, you keep going to church, you keep having faith, and the fruits of that begin to process by, let's go back to the story now. So we get out of the the mire here, and we're told, hey, $10 an hour, no longer $10 an hour, and so we're in Kansas.
We're in,
Y-
we're,
The company that you were, sorry, the company.
yeah. So I ended up at, after 2 months of being laid off or fired, finding a job in Kansas City. And it's with Google Fiber, so top-notch company, one of the first 100 installers to work for them. There's thousands now, but it was pretty cool. So I was learning a new thing while they're learning a new thing, and I'm able to show my skills because I was a very skilled installer, and I was like, okay, I can do this, whatever. So the great thing was I didn't have to carry around that 24-foot ladder anymore. It was more or less the 6-foot ladder, and I was like, I can definitely do this. This will work. But it was me traveling every week to go up there every Monday through Thursday, I think is what I had my schedule set at. So it was like 10-hour days or whatever. Um, I can't remember, but that lasted 11 months. I got looked over a couple times for promotions because the company was looking at people they already knew more than they knew I was an outsider. I was from another town. Could they rely on me? All that type of stuff was going through their minds, and I understood, but I thought it was more of to me, I felt like it was more of a camaraderie thing, like they knew each other, and so he's going to get the job over me, even though he was in the same class as me, and I do a better job than him, and I have better customer satisfaction surveys for 4 months in a row, 100%. Like, I think you'd give me a manager position. Anyways, but I wasn't ready for it, so people that I was staying with during the week for that interim time was allowing me to stay in a room in their house. So, but one of the girls' husbands, he was a boyfriend at the time, said, "Why don't you put your resume in at the bank that I work at?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah. I mean, it can't hurt." I was like, I mean, what can I do? Not get the job. So I put my resume in there and I got the job. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. And they were like, okay, it's for $50,000 a year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Like, it's crazy to think that I got that job, but I still had to go to Kansas City and I still had to do my time there. But that's what changed everything for me. Like, that's the moment that I got my new career, from installing to technology. Like, I was IT service desk at this bank, at a corporate bank on the 26th floor in Kansas City. So I have this amazing view of the whole city. I'm like, this is nuts. Like, I'm getting $50,000 a year, and I can now get insurance. So I can now partake in the health of my family. I never have before. We never had insurance. We just couldn't afford that stuff. So, and with a company, they pay half of that. So that was great. That was a great moment right there for me. And I knew that my prayer was answered at that moment. I was like, this is nuts. And how do you get a job at a bank with being a felon? Well, it was overlooked. It just wasn't I guess, earmarked or said, hey, this guy's bad or whatever. They gave me a chance. It was awesome. And from then on, I knew. I was like, anything you put before the Lord, even if it's for you, but it encompasses other people that it's going, like I said, impact tremendously in their life for the better, and you keep on it and you keep asking for that, and you trudge ahead and you don't look back. You don't say, this isn't going to happen. There's steps that happen that don't seem right in the path that you're asking for, because sometimes you got to take 2 steps back to get ahead, right? Anyways, but that is the devil interceding. He's trying to stop you. He's trying to stop that from happening. But the Lord has a path for you, and he will take you to that place if you keep up.
And the best part about that is, whenever you've gone through those things, like, it's easy to say, you know what, God, I would do this for you. You know my heart. So why am I going through this? Like, you know my heart. You know what's going on. It's proving that is faith. And the faith is really what gets worked in that, because you're continually questioning, whether it's your own questioning, whether it's, the enemy trying to stop you. But it seems like in those times, when you are down and it seems like you're not going to be able to get back up, you realize the reason you feel like you're not able to get back up is because you're trying to get up yourself and you're not handing these things over to God. So that fruition of sometimes 5 weeks, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, that moment of, oh, okay, God, this is what it was all about.
Yeah.
Not only did he get the prayer answered, but you've been through all this stuff that's made you stronger. It's made you better. It's prepared you for what God's prepared you for, because you can't go into it with a halfway attitude. And I don't know about like you, Zach, but there are definitely mornings where you wake up, whether it's you're serving or whatever the case may be, and you got to get up early and it's Sunday and you're like, man, I don't know about, maybe if I just take this day and rest. And you come in that feeling of, I did it for God anyways. You got to build those moments. Like, it's not
Right.
just that,
Yep.
that Sunday that God, that Sunday I went in early for you and I got the coffee ready. And you know what? I stood outside with Larry and I helped him welcome a couple people in, and I didn't feel good. You're going to get more than just one of those. Those moments are going to keep coming, because your flesh doesn't want to contribute. Your flesh wants to stay of itself, of this world.
Right.
So it keeps trying to settle you back in. And it's whenever you continue to say, no, I'm going to do this for God, the next thing you know, it doesn't even feel like serving anymore. There's Sundays where I think I messaged Zach a couple weekends ago. I was coming in on Tuesday and I did a practice and I messaged him and I was like, we're in the booth together this weekend. It's so it gives you something excited. You that's another thing, is like each other, you get excited.
Like you said, it's something you look forward to now, especially coming along with getting to know everybody and just building that community. It's no longer just an obligation anymore. It's something that you look forward to, and if you miss a Sunday, it doesn't feel the same. Like, there's been a few times where Caitlin and I have been sick or we've been out of town and we watch online. Granted, thank God we have online.
Right.
And, our tech team is, outstanding. Shout out to us. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just not.
Thank you. We appreciate it, each and every one of you.
But it's just not the same as being in person.
That's right.
Granted, if you're out of town and you're not able to come, but you watch us on Sunday every time, thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate all of you and love you guys. But it's just not the same as being here and, physically shaking hands or giving you that hug and, being part of that community.
Yep.
So we are at the point in Justin's life now where Justin is realizing, hey, I've never worked at a bank, nor should I have even been considered working for a bank, yet here I am working for a bank. Everything's going right, and he's beginning to realize that maybe this Jesus guy, there's something about him, and he's comfortable now. So we go from the high rise, working for an IT in the bank department. What's next?
And how was Jessica, Jace, and everybody else dealing with this as you're struggling?
I think they're good because I'm around. But what's next is learning my trade, learning my craft, because it was new to me. So I had to figure it out. IT at a bank, I don't know anything about computers. I do, but I don't. I learned from doing cable and networking for Mediacom, and that's really all I knew about a computer, is how to put this disk in and how to plug this into the USB. And sometimes you got to flip it over because it's the wrong side on the USB. Anyways, so it's really learning technology and understanding the ins and outs of the bank there, but also growing at the church too. So there were some changes there as well. That's when Erica began, and so we started being a little bit more creative and a little more understanding we got a new board, and we worked on, the soundboard there, and yeah, just I guess honing my craft at that time. So then years passed, and I definitely jumped into going to retreats every year with the church, which is one thing that I loved. That was one thing that the men do every year, and ever since, we've been going to these, and they're just uplifting, and just want to make sure that that was said too, because that was part of my journey as well. So making sure I hit all of those, start turning into a leader there, and making decisions there. So we used to call it the men's retreat, which now, ever since we've been Venture at Home Church, we call it Base Camp. So it's a once a year type event where you go on the weekend and you gather with a bunch of guys, and you learn about Jesus, talk about your testimony and how it got you there. And obviously, I'm a good campfire talk, so it'd take me all night to let you know about my journey. But no, it's been a great one for sure. So yeah, a lot of education, a lot of learning. So just making it better, and just my thing is every week, get better. Increase your knowledge, increase something that you didn't know before, and look at where we're at now. That's just all of it because of that. So, I mean, I didn't know a soundboard from anything whenever I first started. So, and now look at us. We got all this technology in front of us, and I know it all.
And not to brag or boast about you, but another thing too is whenever you step into a role like you've stepped into, and you accept the responsibility, people don't realize that there isn't a clock in, clock out machine here. So it's not about counting the hours, but just so the people could get an idea, just a vague idea. How many trips to this church do you make in a 7-day week period? How many trips would you say?
At least 3, maybe 4, depends. But that's after, when I was at Venture and I was learning all of this stuff creatively, and not figuring out my schedule and how to put this all in at one time, and all that fun stuff. I was there 20 hours a week, just giving and learn and creating and doing, so that somebody who comes in on Sunday doesn't have to worry about all that stuff, and it's just an easy flow through the whole service. That's what I was attempting to make every week. So I would spend hours so that somebody else wouldn't have to, which was gratifying to me, because it gave me time to do something that I felt was pertinent for saving people that week. So I loved it. It was great. It was fun for sure. That's the gratification I get out of it every time. So it doesn't matter if I'm here once, twice, 3 or 4 times a week. Every time it's gratifying to me, for sure.
And yeah, and that's, like I said, not a clock in, clock out machine trying to prove, but just to give you an idea of, if you really do want things to come to fruition, and whenever you tell the Lord, hey, you know what, I'm yours, God, do with me as you will, it's very difficult to sit at home and do his will. Usually that doesn't happen. So it does take a lot of trips here, and we don't just walk in here on Sunday and flip a switch, turn a switch that turns all the computers on. Just the soundboard alone takes different individuals singing every week. You're going to have different pitches. You got to be here to know, okay, this is whenever Nathan's going to get high. This is whenever Dana's going to get high. We got to back it down a little bit. Drums and this.
No, I'm kidding. Dana's awesome. Mute Dana. Don't mute Dana.
Don't mute Dana. But the thing is, and it's just like the worship team. You don't just walk out Sunday and you're done. The worship team, they have got what's called multi-tracks, so they've got quarters prepared. They've got their new songs that they've got to learn, and they don't always get to practice those new songs with the same people all the time.
Right.
It varies, so they do an amazing job as well of being able to transition. So whenever I would just encourage you to understand that whenever you decide to serve and you say, you know what, God, here I am, it it's very difficult for you to do that process just coming in on Sunday and then leaving. Um, so whenever we say serve, we're not just talking about here at home church. We're not just pushing serving here at home church. I mean, there's a whole community out there that needs help, and that's,
Yep.
as Zach said last time, that's what this church is based on: community, finding Jesus, finding people. Um, so that's these stories like this. I think people are really going to enjoy, because you can have 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. Clayton does a good job of recognizing individuals, but you don't know the true individual sometimes, because they don't just get enough time. And your story is one that I had heard bits and pieces of at base camp, but not all of it. And so we kind of started off at the top with the church breaking up, and to this point now. If At what point or how many times did you think to yourself, God, I think I'm ready to quit? How many times would you estimate from whenever you started the story to right now sitting in the chair, just so just so they get an idea?
A lot, a lot. There is times that it gets to you. There's weekends that, like I said, there's times that I bumped heads with another person, an individual at the church. I'm like, this shouldn't be like this at church. So, I need to step down from this position. I need to move. And I wasn't even in a leadership position. It was just, in the media booth. So at the time, so it gets to you, but from when home church was started, if that's the question that you're asking today, I didn't ever want to quit.
No, I was talking about
Yeah.
from like when you started the story
sure.
for when you were a kid to now.
That's the crazy thing, and that I think about now is, like, I don't have a moment or a weekend that I've wanted to actually say I want to give this all up at all. This time, it's amazing. I say that's a reflection of the church itself, and that I want to be here, and I want to make it grow too as we grow, and we need to, for sure.
I think that goes for all of us when you say that, we don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking about myself personally, now that we have Jacob and Corinne and everybody else back here, Brett, Larry, Nathan, and, a few more people interested, I get kind of bummed now that I'm only doing it, every other week or, once a month. So
True. Yeah.
I'm gonna be real honest. It's been a blessing.
We run an agile skeleton crew back here, so just to
So,
let you
I
know.
mean, love the fact that I get to sleep in a little bit more on
Yes.
Sundays, but it's a double-edged sword, because you love serving and being with, your community and stuff like that. But,
Yep.
you know,
There's 4
once-
positions here at least every week. 3 that you have hands-on stuff with. So I've got a 3-man position every week. We have that need every Tuesday night at practice. So we got to check the broadcast and check the lyrics and pro presenter and check the sound and make sure all that works with all the equipment that's on stage. And so, yeah, I mean, it's work, but it's all for the blessing. And I think it's the impact that it makes, and the worship that we create is just out of this world awesome. And if Jesus were here, he would be on his knees praising too. So.
and the fact that, just from my perspective, from starting home church, 2.5 years ago, seeing how far we've come,
Yeah.
is a huge accomplishment.
Yep.
And, not just from Pastor Clayton growing and, coming in on that first Sunday, and it was Daniel Doyle with the acoustic guitar, and,
Right.
that, I can't remember.
By himself.
Yeah.
Just
And then
crazy.
eventually we
Yeah.
had Caleb with the slap
Yeah.
drum, and, just slowly but surely using what God provided. And then here we are. And,
It's amazing. It
yeah.
is amazing to see, for sure.
so,
We're about an hour long, so I think we're going to start to come to a close here. Is there anything that you would like to add? Justin, anything at all? Any final
I
word?
just want to reiterate that we have a couple events for this year. Base camp is going to be the last week of October, so get ready to see the sign up coming up soon. We do have a sign up for Stronger Men's. We have a group of 20 people that we want to go together. Right now, the tickets are $100. They're
Which-
on the Church Center app.
which is a pretty good discount
It's amazing.
from what Nathan said
Yeah,
last
it's like
Sunday.
300 right now if
Yeah.
you wanted to go. So $100. We bought them early in advance. So if we get enough people that cover those tickets, we'll do it again for next year.
So for those that don't know, JB, what is Stronger Men's
So I've
Conference?
never been, and that's what's
I have yet
intriguing
either,
me.
so.
I am happy to go. I want to go. It's the last week of April, so mark your calendars, 28th and 29th. $100. Sign up on the Church Center app. But when you get Nathan Winfield in here, you should ask him for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know who else has been, but I've heard it's amazing. I'll be
It's,
sure the reviews are
I
there.
think Tyler Moore. I think Tyler Moore has
Yeah,
been to.
for
Tyler.
Sure. Yeah, anybody who's been to James River for sure has
Yeah.
been.
So it's basically their version of base camp, isn't it?
Yeah, it's their weekend for sure, but
Okay.
I think it's community wide, so it's not just
It's just not
it's
enclosed
it's
to
the
just
men's piece,
Cool.
and they're actually doing. They have speakers and stunts, and they're at JQH, so you get to sleep in your own bed at night. You don't have to go out in the wild and worry about if it's going to be cold and you need to bring your blankie.
Or if Larry has to go to a wedding and you don't have anybody tending to the
Oh,
fires.
man.
Yeah.
Sorry, I hate to pull that bandage away, Larry.
Yeah, so tickets 20 tickets first or $100 each, and when
That's,
they go, they go.
First come, first serve.
That's
so,
right.
Guys, if you're listening, and I'm sure we'll reiterate this tomorrow, but yeah, definitely jump on that.
Yep.
I need to hurry up and sign up for that before
Yeah,
they're
I
all
think
gone.
5 people already signed up, so we got 15 more left.
So- Going decently quick, considering last
right.
week on Thursday we had 0, I think is what you said.
Right, yep.
So, JB, we again just want to say thank you for being here, and if you ever feel down or depressed or having a hard time, just let us know,
for sure.
and we'd like to reiterate that you're making a difference. Speaking for myself, you've been a huge mentor over these last 3-4 years that I've been here, and it's been fun growing with you, and doing this thing called life with you, and walking with Christ, and
I appreciate that.
So-
I want no accolades from this position. I just want to serve the Lord. So that's really awesome to hear. For
So,
sure.
but you being here, matters and makes a difference.
Thank you.
So, we love you, and we appreciate
Love
you
you
being
guys
here.
too, man.
Everybody, we appreciate you joining us on this podcast. Numero dos with JB, Justin Barton here.
I knew I was number 2. Just kidding.
But there's many more to come. So, again, if you have some kind of small business that you would like us to shout out, don't hesitate to reach out to me on Facebook
Yep.
or come find Nathan or me on Sunday. Or if you would just like to come on and share your story, don't be
You
afraid
know what
to.
I like to do on a Saturday is go to Tantera Farms. That's a
Ooh.
great place to go.
You can't go wrong with Tantera, man.
Shout out.
Owner's a little goofy. You better watch out for him.
Yeah.
He gets you wrapped up in a conversation. He'll keep you there for a minute, but we love him. All right, guys, we send a blessing to you, and we thank you for joining us. Lord be with you, and have a great week.